Hello, friends. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. If you're in Nigeria, this is 1:51 p.m. If you are from Nigeria. I decided to do a follow-up to the last video I did about abstraction. So, I want to talk about encapsulation. Encapsulation. Sure. So, basically, people used to confuse these two, encapsulation and abstraction. So basically, encapsulation involve bundling attributes, methods, and access control. Well, let me explain these jargons. So if you have a capsule, right? A capsule will be like this. It encloses your drug, right? So you open it and then you can pour the drug out. So think of it like an analogy to your encapsulation term in programming. In programming, we used to say, this object is encapsulated. What we are trying to say is we've prevented other objects to access it in a free way. We've provided some rules for other objects to follow before they can access it. So basically, what it means is in OOP, object oriented programming, we used to have objects communicating to one another and trying to deliver a task for a program. So let's say you write a program like a program to you build a program. Let's say you want you simulate an alarm in a solution, a program that okay, so time the alarm should ring. So that simulation, right? It involves collection of objects that sends message to one another to ensure that that alarm actually rings. So let me say for instance you want to build a program, you want to build an alarm program. You are going to have a plan. Plan is like the requirement for that alarm clock. So that planning, the way you are planning, the way you are trying to get the feature, you are trying to get the requirement of that alarm clock, the way you are trying to note down what it is that should be the feature of that alarm. That planning, we are saying you are creating a blueprint. Okay, so you are trying to jot down the features of that alarm. You are getting okay, this alarm should have this attribute. This alarm should have it should have time, it should have a power source, it should have a volume. So if you are there should be a button where you click a volume. So those attributes that you are doing, that you are trying to note down, those requirements that you are trying to design, that is what we call blueprint in programming. You are trying to plan out. So it's like a plan. So they call it class in programming. So class is basically a blueprint of what your object will look like. So you have an object in mind, you have a program in mind that you want to make, right? So think of your computer as an architect, as something that you will use to manufacture an object. So for you to do that, for you to manufacture that object with your computer, you need to first have a plan. That plan is called blueprint. So the blueprint of an object is called a class. So we are referring it to um a blueprint in the sense that if you have like a building, you want to build a house, you always have the architect to give you a blueprint. A blueprint is like the paper design of what the real house will look like. So the the purpose of class is just to help us detail out all our program descriptions. So you are going to have the attributes, you are going to have the methods, and you are going to have the access control. So the the meaning of method is what the attributes can do. So what are the things your object should be able to do. So that, for instance, now if you have a alarm clock now, as I was saying, alarm clock, you should be able to say, okay, this my alarm, I want it to to snooze, I want it to display time, I want it to display the power level. I should be able to check my power level. I should be able to set my alarm. I should be able to set my time. I should be able to do some stuff on those attributes. That's what we call methods. So basically, the method is referring to what you can do on the attributes of those objects. So in your class now, you are going to have attributes which tells you the attributes of the object you want to make. You are going to have methods which tells you the behavior of those objects, what you want the object to be doing. So for instance now, the alarm I want to create, I want it to be able to show my power level, I want it to be able to display time, to be able to snooze at some interval. So those methods I'm doing, they are working on those attributes that I've planned out in my attribute. So we have class attributes, we have class methods. We now have access control. So access control is basically saying who has access to these methods. That's what he's saying. So he's saying that, okay, what object has access to this object method? So if you have a program, ideally program usually have plenty objects linked together, right? So those objects used to communicate to one another. So if you have, let's say, you have your own you are building a program, you are building, let's say you build a solution, um, a voting management solution, for instance, you're going to have a login page, you're going to have admin page, you're going to have, okay, the database where you are connecting to the database, you're going to have where you have in your database, you are going to have your data structure, database design, all those objects, right? They communicate to one another to perform specific tasks. You're going to have candidates, regions, all those things. So those things you have in your program, right? They communicate to one another. They are collection of objects. How do we mean by collection of objects? Each object have their own attributes and methods, and they have their own level of access control. So when you bundle those things together, that is what we call encapsulation. So encapsulation simply means having a collection of details of an object, such as the attributes, the methods, and the level of access that should be given to that method. The level of access, the degree of access another object has on that method. That is what we call encapsulation. So you just think of it as you wrap up your data that you want to use, your requirements that you want to use to build an object. You wrap it inside a particular program. Then the methods, those that's the things that can that method, the behavior of those attributes, what those attributes can do, or what you can do on those data. That's the method. Now the access control is just saying that who has access to these methods. So basically it's simple, it's not something that's complex. Just think of it as object. So object oriented programming is just saying that we are programming in object paradigm, meaning that all our softwares that we are writing, we are writing it in an object scope. So each feature we are creating its object, and each object can talk to one another based on some rules that we define in our class. So you can make many objects with your program. That's what we call instantiation. So when you instantiate a class, you form an object. So a class can have plenty objects depending on the values you pass into those objects. So you can have many objects on each class, each blueprint, as far as you are passing different values on those attributes. So for instance now, if you have an animal class and you have you want to create an object dog, right? So the animal will have leg, it will have mouth, it will have color, skin, all those things. So you can instantiate it to be dog, you can instantiate it to be cat, you can instantiate it to be monkey. So depending on the value you pass to it. So if you pass in if you pass in two leg, you say okay, you want to create an hen. If you pass in four legs, so you want to create a dog. If you pass in tail, You say you want to create a cat, or so those are the attributes you are passing to the object. So I don't know whether you get my idea. So the summary of this is objects are created from class. Class represent the blueprint of the object you intend to make with your program, and each object can have many objects inside it. All objects comes together to perform a task, they send message to one another to deliver a task. So have this idea that all the program I'm writing is basically objects connected to one another. Although we have functional programming, but basically I just want you to grasp this OOP concept like this, that object oriented paradigm is talking about objects working together to fulfill a task. An object is an instance of a blueprint, a plan that you have, which is made up of attributes, methods, and access control. That's what encapsulation basically implies. Thank you for your time. I hope you learn one or two things.